Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Healthy Holidays webinar for 2022. My name is Kate Watts. I'm a registered dietitian with Cone Health, and we are going to be going through some holiday tips to enjoy our seasonal foods this year and to celebrate the holidays in a more mindful way. So if you have questions or comments throughout the webinar, please open up the chat box and feel free to share your comments there. So we are going to talk about quite a few different things today. We are going to be talking about the tendencies and trends for overeating during this time of year and what we can do to overcome that. We are going to talk about some tips for holiday events and social gatherings. We're also going to take a closer look at comparing holiday meals. We're going to go over some food safety tips, and I've also got some links to share some recipe resources for you as we go into the holidays. So the first thing that we want to start with is thinking about our mindset as we go into this busy but exciting time of year. So a mindset is really an established set of attitudes which affect how you think, what you feel, and what you do. So just take a moment to think through what kind of mindset you're in. Are we feeling calm and relaxed and able to think through our decisions logically, or do we feel like we're kind of flying by on the seat of our pants this time of year? Also, thinking through your mindset on how you plan to enjoy this time of year. Does your mind go to time spent with friend and family, or does it go to how much indulging you're going to do with the types of meals and foods being served? So, what attitudes do the holidays evoke in you? What is your reason for the season? And this webinar is going to challenge you to think through some of the priorities this time of year in an attempt to choose to be more mindful and in control. So, let's get into what that might look like. The first recommendation is to focus on habits, not weight this time of year. So if we want to lose weight, this time of year is not necessarily the best time to do it. Maintaining our current weight throughout the holidays is a good goal. It's more realistic and it puts less pressure on ourselves. It also allows us to enjoy some of the treat foods around us without feeling deprived or restricted if we were otherwise trying to lose weight. And we'll talk a little bit about how that backfires on us later. Another tip is to plan on not dieting after the new year. When we have anticipation of food restriction, it sets us up for overeating during the holidays. We get into this mentality of, oh, it's my last chance to indulge in this food because I'm going on that diet starting January 1. Not to mention that dieting is not a good long-term strategy overall. We know that if we are following crash diets or extreme diets, we tend to lose lean body mass like muscle or water weight, and we're not actually targeting body fat. And so that can therefore slow our metabolism and not to mention make us really cranky and obsessed with food and tends to get us into a yo-yo cycling of weight loss and weight gain. So many times when we enter into a diet that's overly restrictive, we end up after that diet regaining more weight than we had to begin with. So these two tips are to set us up with the right mindset of how can we enjoy things in moderation and be really mindful and be very happy with our food decisions, really focusing on feeling good and balancing our decisions without feeling overly deprived. So we'll give you some tips on how to do this specifically, but in general, there are also a couple things that can really help keep that positive mindset and help with this idea of balance and moderation through the holidays. So the first tip is to stay active. Plan time to get in some movement throughout your busy schedule. This doesn't have to be a structured exercise routine. It could be something fun with the family or neighbors, friends, or coworkers just to get moving during this typically overscheduled time of year may seem like a challenge, but you can fit this in small gaps throughout your day. So whether that's a brisk walk, a quick hike, or maybe it's being active with family doing festive activities like ice skating or skiing or sledding. If we are blessed with snow this time of year, we can incorporate activity and movement into some of those fun activities. So when we're moving more, it helps us to relieve stress and it also regulates our appetite. Both of those are going to be really beneficial for staying in a positive mindset and making more mindful choices overall. Another thing we encourage folks to do is to take time to relax. The holidays can sometimes bring some stress. And so each day, trying to find a little bit of time to reground ourselves, to recenter ourselves. You can do this through yoga or Tai Chi, meditation or prayer, some deep breathing exercises, reading or journaling. Maybe it's just lighting a candle and sitting in silence for a moment, or maybe it's taking a hot shower or bath, but trying to find a daily way to shed some of the stress, daily stress that has built up. Setting priorities this time of year is very important because we tend to be asked to do more than usually our schedules um, can allow. And so setting priorities on what is most important and really being honest with ourselves that, do I really need to do this today? Is this something I could do tomorrow or next week? It won't be the end of the world. Let's not be too hard on ourselves. If we don't get all of those presents purchased and wrapped 3 weeks ahead of time, it's all right. So it's okay to say no, and we also need to learn to ask for help. So especially around food, if you're preparing holiday meals or dishes, delegate some of those items out to other family members or guests, and just remember it's okay to ask for help. So let's go through some tips for holiday events. This is probably my favorite part of today's webinar. I think these tips are very helpful to allow us to still embrace the joy that comes from food this time of year. So we are still getting pleasure from food, but allowing us to do so in a way where we don't feel guilty or stuffed afterwards, where we really can go away from an event feeling satisfied and joyful and not regretting any food decisions. So that is our ultimate goal here with these tips. First tip is don't go hungry. And so this may mean having a well-balanced and satisfying breakfast or lunch before heading out to a festivity, an event, a family meal, a work gathering. So basically, we're wanting to keep our appetite on our side. We don't want to attempt to save space or save up calories on a day of an event. While this may seem like a logical route to take, it actually tends to backfire. When we arrive to an event overly hungry and there's a large abundance and variety of foods, we do tend to overeat because not only are we tempted or, things look good and they're convenient, but we also are overly hungry. And so our appetite tends to lead us to overeat in those situations. So try to go into these situations where you're not feeling ravenous or starving, and then you're able to more rationally follow through with some of the other tips that we have. Next tip is that plate size really matters. So the size of your plate can have an effect on your portion sizes. And with a smaller plate, we more naturally serve ourselves smaller portions. And we end up eating about 30% less just by using a smaller plate. So our visual appreciation of the food filling up our plate actually has a big impact on ultimately how much we end up consuming. So when there's a large variety of foods to choose from at a holiday or an event, try serving yourself taste and bites rather than full portions. If you're someone that really likes to try everything, which is me, some people prefer to, choose 3 or 4 items that they're really looking forward to, and that's what they fill up on their plate. But if you like to try a little bit of everything, take the taste and bites route, and that way you're able to enjoy variety of things without feeling overly full and stuffed when you leave that event. Next tip is to eat mindfully, and this is important all throughout the year, not just during holiday season, but eating mindfully helps us to stop at a point where we are comfortable and satisfied because it requires us to slow down and really listen to the hunger and fullness signals that our body is giving us. Now, that may be hard to do when we have a lot going on, a lot of distractions, a lot of conversations during a bigger holiday event. So, when you're enjoying time with your family, still try to slow down and listen to your body when you're eating. And once you feel satisfied, stop eating. This may mean that we have to pass up on seconds. It may mean that we have to practice saying no thank you to what we call food pushers, those that have prepared a delicious meal, have put time into this meal, are showing their love through these dishes and want us to enjoy more and more of them. And as they continue to offer additional servings or additional food items, we have to politely insist, I couldn't possibly eat another bite. That was delicious. May I have the recipe? That was delicious. May I please take some home for later? And so just being consistent with politely passing on food to avoid getting to that uncomfortable level of fullness or discomfort. Let me know in the comments if you've had experience with that, if you have certain occasions or family members or friends that are insistent that you continue eating past a level of fullness and how you've dealt with that in the past. So the next tip is to enjoy your favorites. As I've mentioned, too much restriction now can lead to overeating later. So you want to allow yourself to enjoy some of these holiday favorites. Some of these foods you may not see very often throughout the year. And so it really is a special item that you like to enjoy in association with a particular holiday. So when you're enjoying that type of food, really just try to practice mindfulness and savor each and every bite so that you get full satisfaction from this food that you've been looking forward to. Remember, though, that this is not the last time you will ever get to eat these foods. If you don't have physical room now in your stomach to enjoy them, you don't have to force yourself to take the opportunity to enjoy this food. You will have another opportunity in the future to consume special foods. So just sometimes it's a mental game of reminding yourself, I could have this tomorrow, or I could take some home, or this is not the only time I'm ever around this food, or I could purchase or make this food at any time. So just kind of working through the temptation to fall into those thoughts of, this is my only chance to enjoy this. I might as well go all out. I might as well overindulge. Another really important tip for the holidays is to sip smart and otherwise to choose your beverages wisely. Particularly with alcohol, we know this is high in calories and it can lead to having multiple drinks when we're in this kind of social setting. And alcohol lowers our inhibitions, which often leads us to make food choices that we wouldn't normally make. So if you do choose to drink alcohol, select light wines and beers and have plain or sparkling water in between drinks. Now, moderation is key. So limiting the number of alcoholic drinks you have during one day is also a very important strategy. Also, be aware of the extra calories in things like sodas, fruit punch, and eggnog. And again, balance this with some of those lower sugar beverages like water, herbal teas, ciders, and things like that. So another tip is if you are preparing dishes for your holiday occasion, try an ingredient swap. So some of the items here are really best used for baking. Others can be used in a variety of recipes. But the thought here is that there are probably certain dishes for the holidays that are family favorites or that have been passed down from generation to generation. And those are the ones we probably don't want to mess with. So let's choose two or three special recipes we leave as is. However, for everything else we're preparing, let's see if we can't make some easy substitutions to cut back on the calories without sacrificing flavor. So, especially things like our vegetable side dishes, thinking about how we can grill or roast these with herbs and spices and fresh lemon juice or vinegars or other marinades versus baking them into these really creamy, fat filled dishes. So, again, trying to achieve balance in some of our especially here in the South, like our good old favorites, and other ones where we put a little bit of a healthier twist on it. I'll be sending out again the recording, which will provide you a copy of these slides as well. So if you're wanting to reference any of this again in the future, you'll be able to. So the next tip with preparing dishes for this time of year and all times of year is to flavor with herbs and spices. So squeezing fresh lemon juice on steamed vegetables, broiled fish, rice, or pasta is a great way to flavor without any salt or any fat. Using onion and garlic to really liven up meats and vegetables. Trying salt-free spice blends like Mrs. Dash has a whole line of different blends that don't contain any salt. Very delicious and flavorful. And if you're shopping for spices, remember to look at the ingredients because they don't always have a nutrition label. And so if you're wanting to know if there is salt in the blend, you'd want to read the ingredient list because some blends may look salt free, but they're not. Salt is actually the first or second ingredient. And then some, items are already going to contain salt in them, like our meats and our cheeses. So it's going to already have that salty flavor. If you're adding, say, cheese to a recipe, you may not need to add as much salt for flavoring. And when you're cooking, try the just a pinch method. So we try just a pinch, stir it all in, give it a taste, just a pinch more. So really trying to use the lowest amount of salt or oil or butter when cooking to get the flavor you desire, but again, using the smallest amount necessary so that we're not overdoing it, packing in the sodium or calories. So spices are a huge world of flavor to experiment with, and all different cultures and cuisines get very creative in these combinations. So I always love trying other cultures' holiday dishes and traditional dishes, and it gives me inspiration for cooking myself throughout the year. This is a great tip as well. When we're in these kind of social situations for the holidays around food, really reminding ourselves, and again, this is a mindset going into an event to enjoy the company and to really turn our focus towards having meaningful conversations with the people that are there instead of being so laser focused on the food and consuming the food. So connecting with others will help you take breaks in between bites, help you slow down when you're having that conversation between your bites of food. And another tip for gatherings is to try and stay seated when you're eating. If you're walking around and eating and going to the food table, filling up your plate, walking around and eating, we get into this grazing pattern, and we tend to overeat because we're prolonging that eating time. So if we can fill up our plate and sit down and enjoy that slowly during, while conversating, and then get up and mingle afterwards, sometimes that can be one strategy to help us stay mindful when we're around a large amount of food at a certain gathering or event. So let's move into comparing some holiday meals. So I want you to take a moment here and consider the two images that we have of these two different holiday plates. So we've got one more indulgent plate, one maybe more mindful, balanced plate. And so just looking at what differences do you see here? And also thinking through, how would it feel consuming the food on these plates? How would you feel during the eating experience? How would you feel afterwards? Would you be satisfied? Would you be stuffed? Would you maybe need to lay down and take a nap? So, how would the experience of this holiday meal differ for each of these plates? Now let's look at these each individually. So let's start with our more indulgent plate. And so what we're seeing here is a lot of mixed dishes where each bite is the same, right? It's in a casserole form instead of separate components. And when we have a one dish type meal or um, item, we tend to eat more because we don't have that difference in textures and colors and mouthfeel. Um, we also notice here that even our vegetables that are on the plate are really loaded up with added fat or added salt or added sugar, and they don't look much like their original forms here. So we notice that there are some more processed items here. We notice that a lot of the plate is the same color. And so that's a good indicator that we're lacking some balance and variety. We really could use some more color and some more wholesome forms of these foods to balance out this plate. Portions are a little large too. I mean, this plate is definitely full, right? Now let's compare that with our more balanced or moderate holiday meal. So on this one, you'll notice that many of our food items are in their more natural form, right? We've got the actual cranberries instead of a canned cranberry sauce. We've got green beans and sweet potatoes where we can see, more of their color, and they are certainly flavored with herbs and probably some oil or butter, but they're not as loaded as they are in those casserole forms. We've still got the holiday favorites, right? We've got turkey and gravy, we've got some stuffing back there, but in more reasonable portions than our indulgent plate. Overall, this plate is way more colorful, and it's still packed with flavor and those holiday staples. So when it comes down to the actual holiday meal, our plate will likely fall somewhere in between these two. But really, just the point of this is to help us see that small changes will add up big time in terms of getting more nutrition and variety and balance on our plates. And it doesn't mean that we have to sacrifice flavor or enjoyment. So let's talk leftovers as we wrap up today. Each year, 400,000 Americans get sick from holiday leftovers that have been mishandled, left out too long, or stored incorrectly. I know that's not very pleasant to think about, but it is a fact of life that to stay healthy during the holidays, we want to make sure we're handling our leftovers properly. So here are a few tips on food safety. If you're preparing the foods at home, making sure that we're cooking our large proteins. If we are doing ham or turkey, making sure that internal temperature reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit. So investing in a meat thermometer is a great idea for to ensure the safety there. Also, keeping raw meats and poultry separate from food that won't be cooked. So, using separate cutting boards, plates, and utensils. Making sure that we thaw our meats correctly so that when they go in to be cooked, they're cooked thoroughly. Another important thing is to store leftovers in the refrigerator within 1 to 2 hours of the event. I know a lot of us like to leave our food out so people can go back and eat throughout the gathering as they want. But after about 1 to 2 hours of the main meal time, we need to go ahead and put any perishable items into the refrigerator. And of course, freezing items as well if you have a lot of leftovers. Very important is to wash your hands. So whether you're the ones preparing the food or whether you're just there to consume the food and enjoy it, wash your hands before and after meals. And especially with preparing food, washing your hands after handling raw meat and poultry is extremely important before you touch the next thing that you are working on. If there is food that's been left out over 2 hours, we want to go ahead and discard that perishable food. And if you're taking leftovers home and you have longer than a 1 to 2 hour drive, try to pack it in a cooler with some ice packs or other cold foods around it to keep it insulated, so that that is safely traveling home with you. So let's practice some good food sanitation and hand sanitation this holiday season to keep those germs from spreading around. Lastly, I just want to leave you with some recipe inspiration and resources. So these two dishes I thought were a great example of how to use in-season produce here in North Carolina anyway. These are in season in a fresh, colorful way as just some fun side dishes for the holidays. So we've got roasted Brussels sprouts with goat cheese and pomegranate seeds and a no sugar added sweet potato casserole. So just a diabetes friendly take on a classic here in the South. Um, Another resource that I wanted, these are both from eatingwell.com. And so I linked here at the top their entire holiday occasion recipe catalog. So I think they offer a good variety of just giving our normal favorite dishes a special holiday twist, but keeping it in a more mindful, healthy way. And then the other link here is to cookinglight.com. This is a great resource for just real family favorite basic recipes that are, they're well known, but there's a slight twist to make them a little healthier. So they do use quite a bit of those recipe substitutions and things like that to um, just give these a lighter feel to some of our holiday favorites. So I hope you give those links a look, that you can check those out and find some recipe inspiration. And I wish you all happy holidays. Again, this recording is going to be made available on the Live Life Well YouTube page, and I'll be sending it out to all of our participants after today's live webinar. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.